Who are the best waiver wire pickups ahead of week 4 in the NFL? It's time to find out now on another edition of Locked On Fantasy Football.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast. As usual, I'm your host, Vinnie Iyer. When I'm not doing this, I'm writing about NFL and fantasy football for sportingnews.com. We have our waiver wire rankings there that you can check out, the targets that you need to look at to help improve your roster. That's what we focus here on Pickup Tuesday. That's look at all the key position acquisitions you can make, whether you're using a waiver wire priority system or free agent acquisition budget. All the guys that you need to think about and why you need to think about picking them up. Are they plug-and-play starters? Are they handcuffs? Are they guys that can help you in different situations with the right matchup and help you get rid of some shakier options on your bench? So we'll go through all those. We'll do it in a slightly different order on today's show. We'll go through the running backs first, a little shorter list, but still a significant list there. And then we'll spend our second segment all on wide receivers, a lot to look at wide receiver. Then we'll close looking at the quarterbacks, tight ends, and go back. There's a few more streaming defenses that we can consider this week. So a little bit better options there to help your team, as defense always a challenge there to find the right plays week in and week out. So we'll get into all that. We'll also have a little bit of a breakdown of what we saw between the Cowboys and Eagles. Before we do that, I got to tell you this episode of Locked On Fantasy Football to you by Rock Auto. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. Visit rockauto.com and tell them Locked On sent you. All right. So Eagles Cowboys, it was pretty much all Cowboys. They had that weird defensive touchdown they came. Jalen Hurts had to get some garbage production there, but rough night for Jalen Hurts. He throws a pick six there to Trayvon Diggs, who's really looking good, making plays here, living up to his reputation from Alabama. Stealing the draft last year. Diggs is looking very good there. So tough matchup, but they get some production there from Jalen Hurts and the Eagles. The struggle there, Miles Sanders in that running game that isn't Jalen Hurts really needs to get going here. Maybe it'll happen against the Chiefs, who really struggle against the run here in week 4. But yeah, this Eagles offense seems to be a bit all over the place. Not enough from the wide receivers, really focusing a lot on Dallas Goedert and now Zach Ertz at tight end. So we'll have to see. I think it's a work in progress. I think there are some pieces there that can really work. But for fantasy football, a little bit up and down right now beyond Jalen Hurts, who has a pretty high floor because of his running, but the ceiling may be a little bit limited until those wide receivers can get going. Now, for the Cowboys, Doc Prescott looks awesome. He's dealing to new targets, which we don't love if we have CeeDee Lamb or Amari Cooper, but we saw Dalton Schultz come on. So Schultz is the guy right now at tight end over Blake Jarwin that the Cowboys prefer. And Ezekiel Elliott, if you're worried about him after week 1, don't worry about him. And the Tony Pollard situation, no, it's still Ezekiel Elliott's backfield, multiple touchdowns there, ran really well, caught passes, so he's not going anywhere in this game script for the Cowboys, and I think he'll be a big part of what they do going forward. It was just the matchup against the Buccaneers. Very tough team to run on in week 1. Zeke is fine, Dak is fine. Cooper was a little bit banged up going into the game with the ribs injury. CeeDee Lamb was the focus of the attention there for the Eagles defense, so that may still happen, but the Panthers, we know the next opponent lost J.C. Horn for the season, and Dante Jackson's the other guy. So good rebound spot for them, as well as Zeke keeping it going with Dak here, I think, in week number 5. So that's a brief look. It was all pretty much Cowboys in that game from start to finish. So Cowboys offense looking good with Kellen Moore and Dak healthy. The Dak that we know is back. And so is Elliott. We know that Elliott was finishing at a high level in games where Dak started before he went down with the ankle injury. So a good combination for the Cowboys. Trust in your Cowboys week in, week out. Just an explosive offense with a lot of scoring opportunities that are going to help everyone involved there going forward. I think at 2-1, they're clearly here the favorite to win the NFC East. All right, let's move on to running back pickup targets here on this waiver wire look on a Tuesday. And we'll start with Shuba Hubbard. We're going all the way back to Thursday Night Football. Christian McCaffrey didn't stay in the game all too long. He saw Sam Darnold do a read option score, and then McCaffrey was pretty much hurt soon after that. So Chuba Hubbard is the choice here. Everyone, this is a reminder, after we saw what Alexander Madison did, they're filling in for Dalvin Cook against the Seahawks. Always handcuff your top backs. It's anybody who might have the opportunity to see the key touches. We saw that last year with Mike Davis. It was imperative in a lot of leagues. I just missed out on Chuba in one of my drafts. I actually had him on my list to draft, and someone took him, and that's a strategy that a lot of people use, knowing that there's going to be attrition at the position. Grab a few key backups, but Hubbard's still available in most leagues here that you can target. If he's there, hopefully your league had a rule where people can pick up guys between Thursday and Sunday if they had already played. So Hubbard should be available. Go after him. He's the guy right now. Royce Freeman, also some consideration. He might get some goal line looks and passing game looks. We'll see if Hubbard can have good ball security and stay on the field. But he did look rather good against the Texans, minus a touchdown there in his opportunities. And that's why they drafted Hubbard. That's why you should also pick up Hubbard this week and put some investment in. But we know Christian McCaffrey is also not an injured reserve, so you can't put all your resources into picking Hubbard. But if you're McCaffrey, or he's the highest priority, anyone else you can look here if you need a short-term flex fill in. The Cowboys are getting the matchup this week, as we mentioned, good enough to plug and play Hubbard into your lineup. More as an RB2. We know McCaffrey's a smash RB1 every week, but this Panthers replacement, more of an RB2 at this point. Although we saw Mike Davis have a lot of RB1 finishes last year. Now, Peyton Barber, we're not sure how long he's going to serve here in the Raiders' backfield, but it hasn't really looked good for Josh Jacobs. He has multiple injuries with the toe and ankle. Kenyon Drake, I don't know why they signed him. He wasn't very effective, and Peyton Barber was even getting the receiving down looks there against the Dolphins. They just wanted the hot hand. He's the guy that does what John Gruden wants to do and run forward and power through, and that's what we saw. Barber just burned that Dolphins defense over and over. So I think he's going to be the guy here for a while. It's the Chargers. They have some weak linebacker issues there. You can run on the Chargers. We saw Clyde Edwards-Helaire get out of a slump there playing against the Chargers, and we saw that Elliott-Pollard combination go off. So good opportunity here. Barber gets to start. I think he's going to be a guy that you can start in fantasy here in the short term. So Hubbard and Barber, plug-and-play guys right away, and that doesn't happen often. Again, you look a little bit later, you can look at Royce Freeman, might have some value should Hubbard stumble a little bit, but again, short-term rental for either of these guys here. Hubbard more at a higher level. Kenneth Gainwell, we'll see. Miles Sanders has struggled a little bit. Partly is the Eagles don't know how to use him. That's carried over from one offense to the next. So we'll see how that plays. But Gainwell, special talent, I think can get going. The Chiefs are a very favorable matchup for that running game between Sanders and Gainwell. So I think the Eagles need to get back to that basic and do that to get on track here with Nick Sirianni and channel some of that Colts run-heavy attack here. Now, Tony Jones, we're going to look at him. Alvin Kamara is looking great. But again, we want to avoid a situation with what we saw with Cook and Madison and McCaffrey and Hubbard. Let's get ahead of it. Let's get Tony Jones locked up, especially if you have Kamara. And that same goes. I mean, Derrick Henry's a little harder right now. You say it's Jeremy McNichols there that you would go after. He did have a couple short touchdown catches there from Ryan Tannehill, but at some point it could be Darrington Evans. So a little bit hard there in those situations. But if there's a clear-cut guy like a Pollard or a Madison or a Hubbard or a Jones, it's hard with the Browns because it's a Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt combo. But if there's a clear-cut guy that you're going after, do it. Same goes with Austin Eckler, where Larry Roundtree would have a role, or we know with Antonio Gibson, we would see quite a bit there of J.D. McKissick should he go down. So make sure you insure your top guys as much as possible. This is a reminder to do so right now. On Locked On Fantasy Football, we will continue looking at the pickups that you need to target. We'll turn our attention to wide receivers in the next segment, but I do have to tell you, fantasy football fans, this is Vinnie Iyer here from Locked On Fantasy Football with an incredible app everyone who buys gas needs to know about, Get Upside. My listeners are making up to 25 cents for every gallon of gas every time they fill up. Just download the free Get Upside app in the App Store, Google Play right now. Use the promo code Touchdown and get a 25 cents bonus per gallon on your first fill up. That's up to 50 cents cash back. Don't pay full price at the pump anymore. Get cash back using Get Upside. Just download the app for free and use the promo code Touchdown to get up to 50 cents per gallon cash back on your first tank. Some people drive a lot, are making as much as $200 to $300 a month in cash back, and there's no catch. The cash back gets added right to your account. You can cash out anytime to your bank account, PayPal, or an e-gift card for Amazon and other brands. Just download the free Get Upside app and use the promo code Touchdown to get up to 50 cents per gallon cash back on your first tank. That's the code Touchdown there at Get Upside. It is that time of year again. We're back and better than ever with football season. As always, BetOnline is your number one spot for all the pro and college football action this season with an updated news site and interface and even more odds, props, and contests. BetOnline.ag continues to be the number one source for everything football. Head to the website or use a mobile device to sign up today and receive your 100% welcome bonus. That's double your initial deposit just for signing up. Don't forget to use the promo code NFL100 from football, basketball, boxing, right to your Vegas casino games of choice. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts. All right, let's continue with the show. Looking at the wide receiver targets, the Bills went out and got Emmanuel Sanders to replace John Brown. Finally got some return on investment from Manny Sandy. The well-traveled player came through with a big game there against the Washington football team. Just an atrocious defensive effort by WFT. Josh Allen back rolling here with Stephon Diggs, but opening it up. A lot of targets to Cole Beasley, a lot of work to Emmanuel Sanders. Dawson Knox had a touchdown. You had Zach Moss work out of the backfield. So Josh Allen, next step as a quarterback, diversifying, getting more guys involved. But Sanders, good route runner, good complement to Diggs, very savvy, can get open in the red zone. We see that. Now, what's hard is Diggs was the guy that was left out. Now, there could easily be a big Diggs week where you don't see a lot of Beasley and Sanders being involved. So keep that in mind. You'd have to look for the right matchups where you have an exploitable number two corner. In this particular game, I mean, you look at it, we thought Kendall Fuller might contain Cole Beasley a little bit. We thought William Jackson III might look at what Diggs could do and contain him. So there was a reasoning behind Sanders and having him go after the number two corner outside of Washington. Just happened to be all the corners really struggled, but there's a reason that he produced more than Diggs in this particular game. So that's what you have to look at. If there's a tough match for Diggs on the outside and Beasley might be a little bit bottled up, which he wasn't in this game, that you can look at Sanders and that's how you approach him. And he's a good stash for your bench at this point, tied to a high upside offense, clearly playing ahead of Gabriel Davis, the young second-year player. Jacoby Myers is a staple of the Patriots offense. I know you have Kendrick Bourne who scored a touchdown. He was busy. We got suddenly high passing volume from Mac Jones. They had negative game script. Well, they're going to have that again against the Buccaneers this week. So Myers is a reliable guy in the slot. We know how bad the Buccaneers are in the slot. Now, Jacoby Myers is not Cooper Kupp, but you've lost Sean Murphy-Bunting. You've lost Jamel Dean. They're thinking about getting Richard Sherman as we're recording this. So, yeah, the secondary really stinks here. Nelson Aguilar is pretty good, and it could be a rotation between Aguilar and Bourne and Myers and how they produce, and the tight ends are going to be involved, Judah Smith and Hunter Henry. But Myers is the returning guy in this offense. He has the most experience. I think there's a bit of chemistry between him and Mac Jones, especially in the middle of the field. So a lot of shorter intermediate passes. I think that's going to help Smith and Henry produce at some point, and I think that also helps Myers in the slot here. So another guy that you pick up, look at the matchups, examine that, but certainly should be managed in a lot of leagues, and I would prefer him over Bourne for sure. I think it's pretty close between him and Aguilar, who I'd like to roster, but I like to have some extra options in that passing game as much as possible, and I think looking at the Patriots is a good way to get that. This is the last call for Tim Patrick. If you're not on board Tim Patrick, you should be. He's replacing Jerry Jeudy. He's connecting well with Teddy Bridgewater. That's the connection we're looking for every week. Mainly, he's more consistent, has a higher floor, I think, than Courtland Sutton. Sutton, a little bit big play dependent and touchdown dependent, where I think Patrick is just going to be solid all around while Judy's on the shelf here. He's that type of receiver to help Teddy Bridgewater. This week, we'll see with the Broncos and how they fare. They finally are playing a little bit better of a legitimate team here in the Ravens, but the Ravens secondary can be had. So Tim Patrick, last call for him. Marquez Callaway, some people might have given up after the first 2 weeks after not seeing much from Callaway, but modest game. He did score a touchdown there and a little pop-up jump pass from Jameis Winston against the Patriots. So we'll see. Callaway and the Saints have some opportunity to be more involved with Michael Thomas still on the shelf. So Callaway, don't totally give up. I still think he can have some value for you here on your team. All right, Terrace Marshall is another guy we're looking for in that Panthers offense. He's getting more looks and involvement here, and could have an expanded role with Christian McCaffrey out. They need to get some more receivers involved. They just traded Dan Arnold, so Tommy Tremble might be the guy they look at a little bit more tight end. But this rookie, I think, has a little bit of upside. I think they're grooming him to eventually be the replacement for Anderson, who's a free agent. But he's getting some good targets, good chemistry there. Could be the new Anderson for Sam Darnold playing off a red-hot DJ Moore. And we know the Cowboys secondary has Trayvon Diggs. So Diggs could really try to bottle up DJ Moore this week. That's a good matchup we're going to watch there. So that could open things up for Marshall even more so than Anderson there, and a good deep league stash there. AJ Green, do we trust Adriel Jeremiah Green as the complementary receiver? But look at it, every week it's been a different guy. It's been Christian Kirk going off in week 1, playing off DeAndre Hopkins. In week 2, it was Rondell Moore. Week 3, it was AJ Green. Remember, DeAndre Hopkins also had a ribs issue, so he wasn't 100%. They had to go a little bit more outside to the veteran Green there from Kyler Murray. Tough matchup this week against the Rams secondary. You could see D-Hop facing a lot of Jalen Ramsey, so that might open the other parts of the field there, but I still expect a high-scoring game. Would I buy too much into Green? No, I'm not. I think it was a circumstance where there were Hopkins bottled up, but I think they still would prefer to get Kirk and Moore involved a little bit more in the passing game because they're versatile and can work the middle of the field. And that could be more beneficial to them than Green on the outside, especially in this tough matchup this week. Desean Jackson in that same game, I know he made a big play there against the Buccaneers. They were targeting, looking for the big plays. I don't think he suddenly jumped Robert Woods behind Cooper Kupp. He's a big play threat. So is Van Jefferson. You can maybe look for that shot play. The Cardinals are a little bit vulnerable in the back end, so maybe you'll get that again, but that's all you're counting on. James Washington, another guy we look at here. Steelers could be without Juju Smith-Schuster and Deontay Johnson against Smith-Schuster. Some ribs issue popped up here against the Bengals. We already had Deontay Johnson miss the game with the knee injury he suffered against the Raiders. So James Washington, always screaming for more chances, might come here out of necessity playing off Chase Claypool. Which Raider do you go after, Hunter Renfrow or Brian Edwards there? Henry Ruggs can be up and down. I think Renfrow is the guy that I'm looking at. He's pretty solid. He's had 3 straight very good PPR results. Well, Edwards is more hit or miss, battling with Ruggs on the outside. But Renfrow in the slot, working with Darren Waller, being the short to intermediate threat there down the seam. Renfrow is going to be busy, and we know Derek Carr and Renfrow have very good chemistry there that's developed. So Renfrow, yeah, he should be managing a lot of leagues. He has some wide receiver 3 value in certain weeks, especially in PPR. Marquez Valdes-Scantling, same deal. He's a big play threat for the Packers. If he does get the big play, then you're in business. But if you don't, boom or bust. He's kind of like Mecole Hardman. If he gets a big play from the Chiefs, really second receiver, you're in good shape. Same thing with MVS. So, it's very similar because Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, they're the guys that usually go off. You also have pretty good tight ends there. Travis Kelce, elite tight end, and Robert Tonyan, very productive. So they need some big plays. But the Packers have that opportunity again against Steelers. They've given up a lot of big plays downfield. So that could very well mean another MVS sighting for a deep shot. Hardman scored last week. He's not a guy that I completely trust. But if something should happen to Tyreek Hill and he's wearing down a little bit, Hardman will be the plug and play. Now, the guy I'm against going after with the Chiefs, Josh Gordon. Every time Josh Gordon gets reinstated and we look, he goes nuts on the waiver wire. It doesn't matter what league you're in, what format, people are going after Josh Gordon hard. I'd be buyer beware on the Josh Gordon. I mean, we just know that even the number 2 wide receiver as Hardman can't get going. Gordon's just getting reinstated. He's learning a new offense. He could be valuable at some point, but we need to see it to believe it here. The Chiefs taking a flyer because really, you look at their receiving corps, pretty weak there beyond Hardman when you're trying to complement Hill and Kelce. All right, so there's a look at the waiver wire. But yeah, Gordon, he's more of a public service announcement. Don't go after him. You're just wasting a roster spot, and you'll probably give up someone who has a little bit more value later. All right, we still need to look at quarterbacks, tight ends, and defenses to look at on the waiver wire, and we'll get into that in our final segment. I do have to tell you again that this episode is brought to you by RockAuto.com. With the ever-increasing numbers of makes and models, it's now impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts you need. Why endure often pointless or seemingly intimidating questioning and wait while the person behind the counter orders the parts on their computer, choosing the only brand their warehouse happens to carry? You have computers with access to RockAuto.com at home and in your pocket. Why choose to spend 30, 50, even 100% more for the same parts from a chain store car dealership? Just take the example of this Honda Odyssey fuel pump. You can spend $353 in the chain store, or you can get it for $216 from Rock Auto. That's tells you a lot about the parts you can find and the deals that you can get and the money you can save. Rock Auto prices are reliably low for every customer. Of everything you can need, brake parts, tail lamps, motor oil, and even new carpet. Go explore their easy-to-use website today to find the solution to your auto part needs. Go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck. Right locked on in their How Did You Hear About Us box so they know that we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. Find them at rockauto.com. All right, let's pick up and close the show here, looking at the quarterbacks, tight ends, and defenses that should be on your mind for the waiver wire. And we kind of break down their roles, what kind of players you should be looking for. Sam Darnold should be now on every roster, I think, as a backup at least, a QB2 that can help you. He's looking good running the ball. He's looking good throwing the ball. Good early season surprise. He's got good weapons. And he's doing it without an offensive line. Maybe there's also a value here with McCaffrey out. So Sam Darnold definitely is going to be valuable and playable. Would I love him this week against the Cowboys? I think he's playable, especially in QQB and Superflex, but just be wary there. Now, a lot of people might be giving up on Justin Fields after that awful performance against Cleveland, but this schedule is going to get a lot easier. Fields is going to get better. We could toggle back to Andy Dalton and Nick Foles and that could make people drop Justin Fields, but drop him. Just look for him. And if he's out there, someone's making Justin Fields available, stash him. I still think he can do really well in this offense. Look, it was a tough assignment. Going in cold there as an injury replacement. Cleveland's defense is pretty good. Team is very good. Tough spot. A lot of pressure for Justin Fields. But they get the Lions this week at home. If Fields is in there and he's available, you're going to plug and play him. So stick with Fields there on your roster if you have him. If someone else is getting impatient, he still got a lot of upside as a rookie because of his running. I think they're going to have to change some of the things they do. It's really hard to trust Matt Nagy and the Bears offense, but Fields just has too much upside to be contained. Trey Lance, I know he's just coming in for cameos to throw touchdown passes or run short balls into the end zone, but it might happen sooner rather than later. Jimmy Garoppolo's been playing well, but he almost made a costly mistake there in that game that they can recover from. Actually, he did because they were playing ahead and all that, and they did get the touchdown to go ahead late, but still open the door. So he did not make the throws on time there. So might be just enough mistakes from Jimmy Garoppolo. And if the 49ers lose the Seahawks this week, you could maybe see a change there. So Fields and Lance not giving up on their potential big value in fantasy football for 2020 on redraft leagues. Now, are you ready for two streamer specials here in week 4? Well, one is Taylor Heineke. That makes a lot of sense, right? They're playing the Falcons, and the Falcons kind of contain Daniel Jones, but Jones had all of his receivers get hurt. But I don't think they have anyone to stop Terry McLaurin or Logan Thomas. They're his main guys, so they're going to get more people involved there. So Taylor Heineke, we know, can produce tight end or quarterback 1 numbers. We saw that. He can also produce tight end number 1 numbers for whoever's out there. You got Logan Thomas in the end zone. So Heineke is going to get the ball to the playmakers. The Falcons cannot stop the key players here for Washington. That's going to help them put up some numbers and maybe a sneaky shootout with how poorly Washington's defense is playing as well this week. Now, Zach Wilson, remember week 1? He was actually pretty good. He had 2 touchdowns there in that game in garbage time against the Panthers, but it's been awful the last 2 weeks. So there's a negative connotation there tied to Zach Wilson, but it's only going to get better as a rookie quarterback. And look, he's playing the Titans this week. The Titans could give him a few problems. It's not in the most favorable spot, but it is the Falcons coming up, by the way, for the Jets. So Wilson, Corey Davis, that combination could reheat. You could also have Jamison Crowder back, which I think could be big here. Have a veteran slot guy help you. And I think they're going to figure out their backfield a little bit more with Michael Carter and Ty Johnson. So there's some developments there that are sneaky. Look, you play these 2 very tough defenses back-to-back. You had Bill Belichick and the guys there. That's going to confuse a rookie quarterback. So is Vic Fangio. He has multiple looks. He has a good pass rusher there. The Titans don't have a lot of that. Neither do the Falcons. These are the next 2 opponents. So Zach Wilson going to be out there. I think he's going to have value as a QB2 at some point. He's going to figure out. He's a smart kid, has some talent. 2 very tough defenses for any quarterback to have, let alone a rookie. So keep in mind Wilson's opponents. That's what you're looking for more than anything else, especially with these young quarterbacks. And same goes with Fields. Bounce back spot potentially there at home against the Lions if he does indeed start over Dalton. So, yeah, not giving up on the rookie quarterbacks. They're rookie quarterbacks. They're going to have some mistakes. And it's not like Trevor Lawrence is lighting it up and is completely safe on your roster. These guys need to be considered Fields, Lance, and Wilson. Let's go to tight end. And Evan Ingram is out there. And will he have a role? We're not sure. But we know that Darius Slayton and Sterling Shepard had hamstring issues. Remember that Kadarius Toney and Kenny Galladay were hamstrung in the preseason. What's going on with the conditioning with the Giants wide receivers? That's a good question. Galladay also banged up with his hip injury that recurred from his Lions last season, so that's concerning. So they need to find some weapons. Saquon Barkley out of the backfield was key. But Daniel Jones might need to lean on Evan Ingram more, and it's not a bad spot this week there that you can look at him. So, yeah, Ingram has got to be busy maybe by default here. And there's some history between Jones and Ingram. So let's see if that production does happen. Tyler Conklin, hard to trust, but he's getting a slightly bigger role here for the Vikings. It's all about them staying in the game and staying ahead. Good matchup this week against the Browns. Austin Hooper in that same game. Hooper's hard to trust, but he did find the end zone last week against the Bears. They are thrown to the tight end quite a bit. And actually, Odell Beckham Jr.'s return kind of helps the tight end get open underneath. So something to watch there. Good matchup for those two tight ends in the same game, potentially a high-scoring game between the Browns and Vikings. Dawson Knox getting some looks. He scored in 2 straight games for the Bills. You can look there if you're really hurting. A young guy that had to take some time with his route running and hands, but a little bit more reliable. Again, with him and Sanders, hard to know if they're going to funnel a lot away from Diggs, but there are some opportunities there with Diggs and Beasley playing off them. Here's some Knox. You can't totally leave him off. And Pat Freiermuth, there was a lot of buzz over Kyle Pitts, and he's been a little bit disappointing there for the Falcons as a rookie tight end. But Freiermuth could see a bigger role here. Again, the wide receiver injuries are there for the Steelers. Ben Roethlisberger can't throw very long. He's feeding Najee Harris in the passing game kind of infinitely. So let's see if Freiermuth can have a bigger role. He did score a touchdown against the Bengals. Some good matchups coming ahead, including the Packers this week for Freiermuth. They have to get him involved. That's the bottom line. He's an extra blocker for that offensive line. They have very good opportunities here to use the tight end more. And Freiermuth clearly has passed Eric Ebron in the depth chart as well. All right, some streaming defenses. I did mention Zach Wilson. He's still going to have some mistakes, I would assume, but the Titans have a couple of good back-to-back matchups against Zach Wilson and Trevor Lawrence. So the Titans defense, not great, but maybe can exploit some rookie quarterbacks for big plays. You have the Saints playing pretty well. They get the Giants and Washington back-to-back. It's coming up here, so something to look at there. Looking at the Bengals, they played really well. They've had 2 solid performances, then they really blew up against the Steelers last week. They get Lawrence at home, a Thursday night emotional home primetime bump there that we look at this week. The Bears looked pretty good while they could. They just were really hurt by their offense, but they really came after Baker Mayfield pretty well. They get Jared Goff and the Lions at home, and the Khalil Mack avoided major injury in that game. So good to know that there are some opportunities there. And we also saw that Taylor Decker, the left tackle for the Lions, went down. So a little bit of a blow there that makes Penei Sewell kind of maybe flip there and then give some opportunities to get to Jared Goff this week. And the Bears defense needs a get-well game as well as their offense, and the game script should allow the Bears to tee off against the Lions here. In week 4, the Packers have a pretty decent schedule coming up in terms of getting some sacks. It's the Steelers this week. We know Ben Roethlisberger doesn't look very good. The Bengals can give up sacks even with Joe Burrow there. And there's always going to be high volume opposite Aaron Rodgers. Then they get the Bears, a good matchup there. And then Washington. So good little stretch there for the Packers if you need them defensively. I think they're playing a little bit better overall with Joe Barry, the coordinator, really put together a solid game and a half here, given the circumstances they had against the Lions and 49ers. So things are going to look up slowly for that Packers defense. Hopefully they'll get Zadarius Smith back soon to make some plays as well. Betting on the NFL doesn't have to be a guessing game. If you listen to the new Locked On Bets podcast hosted by your boy Q and handicapping expert Lee Sterling, get daily picks, blowout specials, wrong team favorite picks, and Lee Sterling's Lock of the Day. Follow Locked On Bets podcast brought to you by BetOnline.ag, wherever you get your podcast. That wraps up this Pickup Tuesday ahead of week 4 for Locked On Fantasy Football as we examine the waiver wire here and where you need to look all across positions. That was what we do every Tuesday, Pickup Tuesday. Don't forget, it's back to breaking down all the games of the week, matchup Wednesday, matchup Thursday, double shot at that. Then we'll come back with lineup Friday, where we look at things from a DFS perspective on the DraftKings and FanDuel, the core players you want to target there, as well as injury updates you need to know, and anything that we might have missed on Thursday Night Football this week, as we mentioned, will be the Bengals hosting the Jaguars. For this edition of Locked On Fantasy Football, this has been Vinnie Iyer. Have a great day, and see you on Wednesday. Good luck with your waiver wire pickups.